to order and call your attention to the Open Meetings Act posted here in the council chambers. If you now please join me in rising for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Granquist.
Here.
Arns. Here. Merrill. McCarthy. Here. Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Would then look for a motion to approve the full agenda with one requested change, and that is to not remove item number 33, but to move item number 3 to follow after item number 35.
I make that motion to move item number 33 to after item number 35.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the full agenda with that change. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Motion carries.
All right, that takes us to item number 29 on the council agenda under public hearings and related action. And so we have a couple different public hearings tonight. And before I open the first one, I do want to make note that our City of Norfolk public hearings are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, order being the key word. So we want anyone who wishes to speak on any given topic to do so without disruption of any kind. Emotional outbursts are out of order. We'll give 5 minutes, a maximum of 5 minutes to each testifier, and you have one opportunity to speak unless you are called upon the council to come up again and answer questions. So those are the rules of the road, so to speak. We will begin with item number 29, and I will open this public hearing at the request of Orphan Grain Train and Tomark Properties, LLC, to consider a zoning change from I-1 Light Industrial District to C2 Central Business District on properties generally located southwest of the intersection of Madison Avenue and 6th Street. And to give us some background first, before we kick off the public hearing, Val Grimes, our city planner, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This area, like you said, is in the southwest corner of Madison and 6th Avenue. It is pretty much that whole block that Orphan Grain Train and Tomark with the silo owns. And their request is to go from I-1 to C2, and so it would be adjacent to other C2 zoning districts just to the east of that. And if this does pass on all 3 readings tonight, there will be a continuation of the second meeting of the conditional use permit at Planning Commission tomorrow morning. There are conditions set on that for this zone change, due to this zone change, for storage and warehousing of goods. And so those two go hand in hand.
Okay. Thank you, Val. So this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, we'll close discussion and move to a Planning Commission report, please.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on February 23rd, 2022 at the request of Orphan Grain Train, Inc. and Tomark Properties, LLC to consider a zoning change from I-1 Light Industrial District to C2 Central Business District on properties generally located southwest of the intersection of Madison Avenue and 6th Street. The item was tabled until the March 8th, 2022 Planning Commission, where the Commission recommended approval of the request with a 6-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, Brianna. With that, I will close the hearing and move to item number 30. I would look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5769, approving a zoning change from I-1 to C2 on properties generally located southwest of the intersection of Madison Avenue and 6th Street.
I'll make a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5769.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion on this, council? Questions? We do have the property owners and developers here, should there be any questions. And we might invite you to come up and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about this project, since we've not talked about it before this body in the past.
Grant Schmidt with Orphan Grain Train. Speaking on behalf of our board of directors, we are just looking at creating a servant center for our volunteers. Our current facility was built in the 60s. It has not been remodeled. It is not ADA approved. We are not looking to add more loading space or docking space. We are just looking to add an update facility that allows us to create more meals for our humanitarian needs across the country. We also are looking to be a training center for our 29 locations throughout the United States. So that we need a facility that we can welcome them in. We need a facility that's different than a facility that we have right now that was created in 1966 when we took over the elevators. We have tried to accommodate the needs, the safety needs that the city was concerned about with trucking and route and traffic flow. We have also tried to separate and I feel like we successfully separate any type of traffic concern between volunteer and pedestrian conflicts with our trucks and with our loading and docking. So we just ask for your approval so that we can go forward. We feel that Orphan Grain Train's a viable part of Nebraska, and specifically we want it to continue to be in the home of Norfolk, Nebraska. We do not want to change any of that, and we just look forward for your approval.
I do have one question for you. Truck usage, do you anticipate any increase in that area?
Well, when we talk to the City Planning Commission, there would be eventually an increase. Right now we average about one a week. And so to try to improve that to somewhere down the line where we would have 2 trucks per week, I think that's pretty well a given. The main traffic is going to be pedestrian flow to match up with our Mercy Meals building and to get more volunteers in there and hopefully to be able to attract a younger crowd of people, specifically schools, colleges, sororities, and civic groups to be able to be a part of this. Our current servant center, and this is what we're calling it, a servant center. Our current facility is able to host properly 12 to 15 people to work at one time. This would allow us to have large groups, meaning in the 50s, to be able to host. But we are not adding any loading dock to this facility. This is specifically a servant center. So,
Any other questions? Thank you, Grant. I think that background helps clarify the purpose underlying the new building development on that site. And I did just want to read into the record that during discussions of this between the city and the Orphan Grain Train that we did discuss some of those safety concerns and also the possibility of potentially someday, if it made sense and there was agreement between both parties, that Philip on that block might be vacated, and that would thereby consolidate the Orphan Grain Train campus, which I think could create some safety benefits and some benefits for the Orphan Grain Train as well. We do very much appreciate what Orphan Grain Train does within the community and throughout the world, and we're proud of the organization calling Norfolk home. Is there any other discussion on this, council? Okay. Hearing none, short title then, please.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and to provide for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5769 carries on first reading.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5769 on second and third. It means there's no opposition to this.
Second that.
Okay, motion and second to suspend the rules and approve on second and third readings. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, ordinance number 5769 carries on second and third.
That brings us to item 31. I will open this public hearing at the request of Michael D. and Gina Eaker, Raymond A. and Mary B. Johnson, trustees of the Raymond and Mary Johnson Trust, and Leah R. Puschendorf, Jr., to consider a zoning change from A Agricultural District and RR Rural Residential District to I2 Heavy Industrial District on properties generally located north of East Newcore Road and east of North First Street and Victory Road. And again, to kick off this discussion with some background, Vale Grimes, our city planner, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have brought up on the screen to show people where this generally is located on the zoning map, and if this does pass, you see this line right here, that this large area of I-2 is purple, and so that is what is requested for this future land. If you go straight up and over and follow down to First Street and then East Newcore Road, so that purple would potentially expand if this zone change passes. And I know there has been discussion because this potential I-2 is next to something other than industrial. There is a 100-foot buffer by code that needs to be against particularly the northern boundary line. And in that 100-foot buffer, there cannot be paving, buildings, and such. It needs to be open grass, green space, trees, such as that. And on the west side, there would be half that, so 50 foot on the west side and the south side, because it would cross a street. So the street gives that buffer also, so it cuts the buffering in half. If there's any questions, I can certainly help answer them.
Okay, thank you, Val. So again, we are in a public hearing. Anyone wishing to make comment can do so, and I will again note that there is 5 minutes maximum per testifier, and that Brianna, our clerk, will be notifying you at the 4-minute mark with a yellow card, and once you reach the 5-minute mark, if you do so, you'll get the red card. So whoever is ready to go first, you're welcome to do so.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Bowdish. I'm the founder of Norfolk Crush, and if the zoning meets the city's satisfaction, I would be the leader of the company making a $375 million investment on the north side of this community. So Norfolk Crush intends to build a modern state-of-the-art soybean crush plant. This is a plant that would consume about 38.5 million bushels of soybeans each year. Nebraska needs to grow, that's over 550,000 acres of production to support this facility. And off of our plant, we would be selling soybean meal, which is a high-protein livestock feed, soybean oil, which is vegetable oil, and soybean hulls, which are a fiber animal nutrition ingredient. Our company, as I mentioned, would be making a $375 million investment, creating 50 to 55 jobs, approximately a $4 million payroll. It is a company that undoubtedly its largest economic impact would be raising the local price paid to farmers and grain elevators for soybeans in the area. We estimate that impact to be nearly $8 million every year. And another large benefit is that this facility is able to dump trucks in facility-wide, a truck a minute. And so today, whereas growers need to travel at least 75 miles from Norfolk to reach another domestic crush plant or further, and at some of those facilities not have a facility set up at that sort of speed, the transportation and time savings cannot be impressed upon enough. So I want to use the remaining time tonight just to address some of the concerns that have come up, both at planning and zoning and in other conversations. The number one concern is, Nick, why can't you just pick up the plant and move it? Just move it east and move it south and reconfigure the whole thing. And really the largest reasons why we're presenting the plan as is this evening. Number one, you have a floodplain around Spring Branch. You can pick up a Nebraska flood map and review it for yourself and see that that floodplain continues on all the way up into and covering a vast majority of the Johnson farm and gets out of the floodplain on the Eaker farm. The facility is being designed and grading to be outside of that floodplain, of course. Number two is, in order to have efficient rail traffic, we have a site layout that accommodates 5 tracks up to 100 rail cars. The facility produces soybean meal at a rate that would produce one of these 100-car trains every 4 days. Not all the soybean meal will leave by rail. Some of it will leave by truck. And so in reality, there's probably 100-car train leaving the facility each week. Another important factor of why the facility is sited the way it is on the property is that for the most efficient use of future land that would be part of the property and any growth opportunities for the business, it's most efficiently laid out. On the north side, as Val mentioned, there's a 100-foot setback, and our northernmost proposed railroad track, the red track, is 130 feet off that property line. It is our company's intention and my full commitment tonight that if approved, our company would add to the vegetation windbreak that you see on the satellite imagery today. That vegetation borders both sides of the property, but it would be our company's intention to add to that and continue it around the northwest corner as a sign of a good faith effort to be a good neighbor. The facility itself, all of the loading and unloading activities are inside of a receiving building. All of our equipment is under dust control to meet the compliance requirements of the Clean Air Act. Both when we're unloading soybeans, that's under vacuum. When we're loading soybean meal, that's under vacuum. All of our roads in blue are paved. We measure and monitor fugitive emissions as part of our air permitting process. Our company will own its own street sweeper. We're required by permits to maintain silt loading on our roads. And so this facility cannot exist without truck traffic. That is one fact and reality of siting a soybean crush plant. And so I would tell you, depending on the amount of soybean meal that would leave in the truck market versus the rail market, Monday through Friday, that truck count is somewhere between 200 and 300 trucks per business day. That's enough product to service the facility all 7 calendar days. This facility runs 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, approximately 353 days per year. So we've been in discussions with Madison County about the needs to improve the intersection at Industrial Highway and North First Street. We've specifically proposed our entrance off of North First Street because as a company, we believe that is the safest route. There was a recommendation and a thought, Nick, why don't you look at moving that down to East New Corps Road? But after we reviewed that, we don't think that that is the safest traffic pattern for this site layout because of the additional 90-degree turn that trucks would be meeting each other at the intersection of North First and East New Corps. So we're proposing our entrance off of North First, come into the private facility, and exit off of East New Corps Road with all traffic finding its way back to the intersection of North First and Industrial Highway. So with that, I see my time is about out, and I'm be here all evening to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone else wishing to testify can do so now. And if you would, there's a form in front of you to sign. Okay. Thank you, sir.
I'm Jim Kime. You have two flyers in front of you. First one was what I hopefully would propose to move the plant, but of course he says it's in a floodplain, so that kind of takes care of that proposition. I have talked to the county about if we could move the plant over to Victory Road. The county is in agreement to close Victory Road and let them use that as an exit road. And really and truly, I think that Victory Road should still be an exit road. That way you're gonna take the bottleneck off of First Street. All those 300 trucks a day coming in there should exit off a completely separate road onto the industrial highway. Also, if we're gonna have that many trucks coming in there, are we gonna have some recourse of not having trucks parked on First Street waiting to get in line? And as this here shows, this is the 27 houses of the people that's affected by this directly. I don't know what more I can say. Is this gonna pass on all 3 readings tonight, or just gonna be? And then after it passes, is there building permits he have to get, stuff like that?
I didn't hear what you, last part, I didn't hear what you said.
Does he have to get building permits after you approve this?
We'll take note of your questions and make sure that they're asked to the developer as part of that process when it comes back.
Yes. All right.
Okay, next testifier, please.
Good evening. My name is Luke Henderson. I'm a lawyer here in town, a partner in the law firm Fitzgerald Bitter and Temple, and I'm here on behalf of several of the property owners of real estate located to the immediate northwest of the tract proposed regarding this zoning change. And instead of listing all the landowners that I'm talking on behalf, I have a list, and I'll provide the city clerk with that after I'm done speaking. But I'm going to be brief. On behalf of the property owners that live in the what's called the rural Becker's Addition, we're asking for you guys to disapprove of the ordinance tonight regarding the zoning change. The general layout, if you look at enclosure 31, page 191 of the agenda packet, you'll see there where the Becker's Addition is located. I believe we had, yeah, you can see it on the top right. I think Val is putting the mouse cursor over. The Becker's Rural Addition has been there for at least 50 years, if not 60 years. There's at least 5 or 6 property owners out there that have lived there for over 30 years. We're asking the city council to consider this zoning change with their interest in mind. The purpose under Nebraska law and the ordinances regarding zoning regulations is to promote health, safety, and general welfare, and also to protect property against blight and depreciation. And I think when you look at the image currently on the screen, and if you use Google Maps like me and you can do the measurements, the plant is approximately, I have 400 yards from the closest residential property and approximately a half mile away from the farthest property in that Becker's Addition. And the railroad corridor is approximately 100 yards away from the nearest residential property and another quarter mile away from the farthest property. And I think when you look at that, it's pretty obvious that what the impact is going to be on these residential landowners. The noise, the smell, the residue. I'm no expert, but potential air pollution, air quality, I don't know. But we don't have those answers tonight, and so I think that's important for the city council to consider. Also, these are single-family dwellings. There's kids out there. This is an attractive area. You got rail cars, you got railroad systems, you got trucks everywhere. They said 200 to 300 trucks on a daily basis or weekly basis. I don't remember exactly. I don't want to misspeak. But that's a potential safety risk for these people and the welfare of this residential property. But most importantly, I think if the city council would disapprove of the ordinance, it would be in alignment with Nebraska law and the comprehensive plan, zoning district plan, because although it is potential benefit to the economy, we do have residential landowners out there that have lived there for several years, have invested in the community, and don't deserve to lose their property rights, their ownership rights, their use and enjoyment of their property. But most importantly, I think this is an important decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. There's no noise test or anything that I'm aware of. There's no traffic studies. There's no air quality studies that have been presented. And maybe this isn't the appropriate time, but before we approve a zoning change that's contrary to the future land use map that was developed over several months or several years, instead of approving a zoning change over 2 months, I think that's important for the city council to consider, because this is potentially the last remedy these landowners have until they have to actually experience the detrimental impact on their property. And so we ask on behalf of all those landowners for the city council to ask those questions, to get the answers they feel most comfortable with, and to protect the residential property to the northwest of this proposed tract. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. Okay, next testifier, please.
My name is Lucas Miller. I'm a agricultural producer from Randolph, and I'm here to speak in favor of the soybean crush plant. Nick has already spoken to some of the benefits and the investment and things like that it's going to bring, and I know for me personally it's going to make a big difference as far as the price I'll get paid for my soybeans. I know there is a lot of concern about traffic and things like that. 200 to 300 semis a day is a lot, but there's a lot of semis that go down Industrial Highway right now, and they've worked hard to route them back through that highway so that way that the trucks stay, for the most part, on truck traffic, on busy highways, not on residential roads. And I know that it's not going to be in my backyard, and I can't speak for the noise or the smells or things like that because it's not going to be at my place. I've got livestock at my place. I think they're probably a little worse off than a soybean plant, but that's my choice. I do know that in cities around us where we haul soybeans to crush plants, they're all based in town. There's one in Sioux City that we take most of our soybeans to right now that the houses sit across the street from the soybean crush plant. There's one in downtown Fremont, and there's one in Lincoln. And those will not be as up to date as this facility is. They do not have as strict of requirements as this new one will have. And I think that being in a rural area, it will be a benefit. It'll be a benefit to me. I think it'll be a benefit to Norfolk, and I speak in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Next testifier, please.
Supposed to sign in?
Yes, please.
My name's Keith Langen, and I am one of the residents out there. We've lived out there for 30 years. I know there's he talks about, Mr. Bodish talks about 50 or 60 employees. Well, there's about 50 or 60 people living in the neighborhood, so I think that's a wash. Have we got $3 million to throw around, or 30 million or whatever it is? 350 million, I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. No, we don't have $350 million to throw around. But if you go back to the tax base, we probably paid $350 million by now. So I think that's a right to live there. They talked about noise. I don't know if any of you guys live near the tracks here in town. Pretty noisy. 150 feet from a railroad track is going to shake the ground. I live right on First Street, and the truck traffic that used to come down First Street before they did build the Industrial Highway shakes my house. And there's no guarantee that these trucks are not going to come down First Street. Any farmer that lives north of town is going to take First Street right on down to where they go. There's not going to be a policeman sitting out there every night or every day stopping these trucks, because there was a truck limit, weight limit, and it never stopped them before. Smell, yeah, it's probably going to stink like hell. The road gonna get tore up. One of my biggest concerns besides the noise is going to be the ground contamination and the water. They want to use, what, 350 to 400 million, or what is it? Somebody tell me, 400,000 gallons a day? 400,000 gallons of water a day. We've got wells that are 60 feet deep. It's gonna suck them dry. They gonna guarantee to drill new wells? I doubt it. Yeah, they got so much money, I mean, they can buy all our houses. Let them spend another couple million and buy them all. I'll move. I'll go to a new home. It's just been a long time out there. I mean, I've raised 4 kids. One of them's very successful here in town. The other ones, the other 3 are fantastic kids. Great neighborhood. You can run around. You don't have to worry about your kids getting stolen or running over because you teach them to stay off of First Street. It's hard. It's hard. The gentleman, Luke, talking from Randolph, I understand his situation. It's great. But on this map, if you go back on the east side of Victory Road, why don't they go straight north? That's not in a flood zone. Take it straight north, 1.5 miles. There's one house out there. Ruin one person's house instead of 30 houses, 25. It doesn't make sense. I know he's throwing a lot of money around. We don't have that kind of money to back us. But we've been there a long time. And like I say, if you go back to the tax base, look it up. The truck traffic, like I say, is going to be horrible. The noise is going to be horrible. Our wells are going to run dry. And then we're going to have to move. Our prices of our houses are going to go down. I know a few of you guys here. You know how we live out there. It's simple life. We don't have the money to throw around. So I hope you consider it. I hope you deny it. If they want to go straight north, look at that route. That's further away from the creek. They can tie into the railroad tracks a lot easier. They can take it up, take the road right up K-Neb Road, go straight north and then come in and that side. That'd be perfect. You wouldn't plug up First Street. You just have to cross it. They've got the highway turns coming off Highway 81 already. They're used to that truck traffic. The gas station's right there. They can pull in and fill their tanks. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Next testifier, please.
Thank you, folks, for taking the time to listen to our concerns. I also live in Becker's Addition. We've been there for 10 years.
Can you give us your name, sir, please?
Oh, my name's Jim Dishman.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And I'd like to ask just one question of you. Who represents me? Who do I talk to? Who? Do you? Do you represent me? Who? Nobody. Nobody. So, this is not unlike the federal unfunded mandate to you, sir, isn't it? We are forced to do something without representation. To live right next to a soybean plant, truck traffic, rail traffic, 2 in the morning listening to train horns. Who do we talk to? Right now, if you approve this, in a moment's notice, our equity, $150,000 equity, me personally, goes down to 2. Who makes that right with me? Now, I guarantee you that there are farmers that received multiple times the market value for their farmland. Now, they either, this gentleman right here, yes, sir, you. They either compensate us for our lost equity or move us. And move us to a satisfactory property to where we can live next to our neighbors again, the ones we live with. And we cherish their friendship. And we don't want to lose that. But right now, we can't even sell our homes. If this is approved tonight, we can't even sell our homes because we've lost every piece of equity that we've got in our small little half-acre properties or acre properties. What do we do? Nobody's gonna buy our house out there. Again, who do I talk to? You are mandating us to live with this soybean plant. Who do I talk to? You? No. You, sir? Thank you very much. I hope you consider that. And I hope you talk to this gentleman right here and talk to him whether he's going to compensate us for any and all of our, put it this way, the reason why everyone moves out there is to go out, listen to the songbirds first thing in the morning. It's quiet. That's why we moved out there. It's because it's quiet. It's peaceful. Our neighbors, we love each other out there. We do anything. We had a state trooper that moved out there, and he told us, well, I will be patrolling here more often now. And I told him, don't bother. We take care of ourselves. And we do. Somebody needs something, we take care of each other. We're taking care of each other right now by speaking to you. Yes, ma'am. And that's all I have to say. Please consider this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next testifier, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for serving in your roles. My name is Nicole Sedlacek. I lead the Economic Development Team at Nebraska Public Power District, where we work with our communities that we serve, both at a wholesale and retail level, and with our energy partners like Elkhorn Rural Public Power on economic development opportunities in greater Nebraska and the service territory that we serve. Our team at Nebraska Public Power District did put together an economic impact assessment on what this Norfolk Crush project would bring. We took the data that was provided publicly that was made publicly available from Mr. Bowdish, from news articles, other public meetings, and this project for the study area, the Norfolk study area, is considered Madison County. So this 55 plant employment with a local investment of $375 million and that payroll of $4 million is what the initial project is. But when you take kind of the secondary impact of what a project like this brings, the secondary employment that this project would bring to the area is an additional 120 jobs. Direct employee compensation for the plant at that 55 workers is estimated to be $4 million. But again, when you take that indirect and induced impacts added to it, the impact on the Norfolk area economy is estimated to be $8.5 million. The annual taxes on production and import effects, primarily sales and property taxes associated directly with this crush project, are estimated to be $54,000, and those secondary taxes on production and imports, those TPI effects, are estimated to be $203,000 annually. I do have this full report that I'll make available to all of you through the city clerk. And then on the last page of this report talks about the retail sales for the Norfolk study area. And retail sales have averaged around 34.4% of the total personal income during the period of 2011 to 2020. And statewide, non-motor vehicle retail sales have averaged around 22.1%. So Norfolk has already been above that average. With this project, bringing those 55 workers, again, those secondary impact jobs that would be coming with a project like this, the estimated annual increase in total retail sales for the Madison area economy is estimated to be $2.9 million. So again, these numbers just taken from numbers that were available directly from public sources on this project, but would answer any questions and also make this report available.
Thank you, Nicole. Next testifier, please.
My name's Austin Haygood. I represent the Norfolk Area Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Norfolk Area Chamber of Commerce, our Governmental Affairs Committee, and the Ag Business Council, we stand in support with the Planning and Zoning Commission on the recommendations regarding the Norfolk soy crush plant. Agriculture and industry drive the Norfolk area economy, and this plant will be a major boost to both of those. With an estimated $375 million investment into our community, we should fully embrace this game-changing opportunity for Northeast Nebraska. Bringing this new industry to Norfolk will continue to grow our town by leaps and bounds. Agriculture is the backbone of rural Nebraska, and Norfolk is the crossroads where industry and agriculture meet. The Planning and Zoning Commission have made their recommendation, and on behalf of the over 670 business members, we stand in total agreement with them.
Thank you, Austin. Next testifier, please.
Hello, I'm Scott McHenry. I live in the Becker's subdivision as well. First off, thanks for taking the time out of your schedules to have this hearing, allow us to come in and voice our opinions. I have been in a similar spot as you, and I know it's not an easy decision, and you got to look at all angles, and it can be difficult. My wife, Andrea, and I, we met in Omaha, and we moved to Norfolk, and we rented a place in town for a short while, and then about 8 years ago, we found the perfect house in Becker subdivision, a couple miles north of town, and we jumped at the opportunity. Since then, we've had 2 children. One just hollered, "Hi, Dad." And one's 6 and one's 2. The 6-year-old attends kindergarten in Norfolk. We were attracted to the neighborhood by the house itself and the land. It's a bigger yard, big trees, quiet, perfect proximity to Norfolk. After living there it didn't take us 8 years, but a short while living there, we realized we had something even more special after we met all our neighbors. It really is a unique place. Everybody knows each other. We celebrate together. We grieve together. And it's almost, sometimes some of us are like family. Currently, my neighbors and I, we've heard from some of them, are very concerned that the proposed zoning change will have a negative impact on our lives. A noisy factory that operates 24/7, 355 days a year is not exactly the fields of corn and soybeans we have enjoyed next door. Things will be very noisy due to the train tracks and factory. Our streets will be much busier with the 300 semis a day. And you can try to route them all you can on the industrial highway. But like Keith was saying, a lot of them are going to come down from the north on First Street. And unfortunately, where the factory is proposed to be built doesn't have direct access to the industrial highway. They have to go on First Street. That's not really built for it to get there. The air won't be the same due to the soybean dust, and many are worried about the risks to our individual wells. I ask that you take this all into consideration. Unfortunately, we don't have an elected representative on this council. My neighbors and I work in Norfolk. We send our children to school in Norfolk. We shop in Norfolk, and we worship in Norfolk. And we attend community events that celebrate Norfolk. We are very much Norfolk community members. So with that, I ask that each one of you considers us your constituent, since we don't have one voice on there. The current plan is to purchase the 460 acres of productive farmland, then to build roughly 4 miles of new rail line and a large factory only feet away from our wonderful neighborhood. I ask that we hit the pause button. Let's table this for now and look for a different location. Maybe something closer to the current railway, something closer to industrial highway, what it was built for. And I know that he was talking about floodplain to the east, but I don't think to the south necessarily was where he was referring to the floodplain. So let's table this and find a better area for it. And my 6-year-old daughter does have opinions on this as well. I asked if she wanted to speak tonight, and she said no, she does not. But she did write a letter that I handed out. And it says, "Dear City Council, I don't want them to build the soybean plant. I have to go to school, and I won't be able to sleep." From Cadence McHenry. And again, she's kindergarten. She wanted to write more, but she had other homework that was required. And I don't know about you, I didn't have homework in kindergarten, so that's blows my mind. But again, thank you for your time. I hope that you put yourselves in our shoes and consider moving the project to a more suitable area. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next testifier, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Steve Martin. I am with the Alliance for the Future of Agriculture in Nebraska, or AFAN, and I'm here in support of Norfolk Crush. Our role at AFAN is to grow the livestock industry in Nebraska. Livestock is one of the first value-added things that you can do to grow the rural economy, and this is something that would support that growth. Having the feed ingredients in a local area is going to attract more livestock in this region, northeast Nebraska. It gives our farmers not only a benefit from the soybean plant itself, but also in sourcing feed at a local source. Should save some transportation on that end and give them a competitive advantage compared to producers in other parts of the state. So I guess I'm just here to say I support it. It's a great way to grow rural Nebraska, and that is kind of the key to growing the state of Nebraska. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next testifier, please.
My name is Norma Jean Wilbur. I think I'm probably the oldest person here. I'm 77. And I want you to know I live in Becker's Addition, and I'm not going to move. I live in the northeast corner on 2.5 acres that Dr. Wilbur and I had lived there for 37 years. It's a wonderful community. And, you know, is this about money? Or is this about people? You know, if you've got enough money, can you do that to people? Displace them without representation? And we have no representation. But I assure you that I will not leave my home unless it's in a pine box, and I will keep whoever I need to in litigation until the day I die. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma Jean. Next testifier, please.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Chad Barnhill. I am with Midwest Music Center downtown Norfolk, but why my connection is to the property here is I actually just bought 2 years ago about 2.5 acres on the southwest corner of Pierce Drive. So if you look on the map, it's up on the very top, and literally the neighbor, possibly the Norfolk Crush. So this is a very big thing. So there is no house on that property. The intention was, and it has been for the last couple of years, is to clear that property. And to put maybe a small home on it, you know, so at someday. We love our community where we're at right now, but it was an opportunity. My wife grew up in the city. I grew up in the country. She can look to the north at the wonderful neighbors, many neighbors. I can look to the south and see a cornfield. What is not going to happen now for me on my side, I lose. But what I know, I think what you're going to find out is most people are going to stop up here and say, what's going to take to not do the industrial? Second is, then what can we do to delay your decision? I think there's a lot of questions that needs to be had to Mr. Bodish, and I think a lot of the community of the Becker Addition needs to have that time to sit down with Norfolk Crush in a separate meeting to answer a lot of questions. We're not getting a lot of questions tonight. I don't know if those questions will be asked when we are done speaking to Mr. Bodish. But I think that the community needs the opportunity to write letters, speak in person, and also for Nick himself to stand up and say what's he going to do. For me, as the direct neighbor, you know, my fence line is going to be in that 100 feet. There's a nice windbreak that's in there right now. So my goal right now in the short time is to talk to you that if this does proceed, and if it does go on, we're probably not going to have an opportunity to come in and talk to you how they can be a good neighbor and a safe neighbor. So if I do have to, and I do want to continue to build on this property, how can I make sure that Norfolk Crush and that you guys and gals have talked with Nick to say, what are you going to do for the Becker Addition? We approve it. What are you going to do to make sure that you are the good neighbor and the safe neighbor when it comes to noise? You know, when is the truck traffic rolling through? When is things getting closed on off days? For the truck traffic, you're saying there's 200 plus trucks, 300. Are you talking about what's going to happen at Industrial Road and Highway 81? You're going to increase the truck traffic tremendously right there. Right now at First Industrial Avenue, that is deemed a dangerous intersection. We don't know why. It's wide open. There's literally been recent deaths at that intersection. What more is going to happen to help with that? You also know I live over by the Victory Road addition, a road that's adjacent to Victory Road. So that truck traffic is going to increase not only in a property area of Becker's Addition, but it is going to increase in the city of Norfolk up and down North and South Victory Road because of those who want to go east on Highway 275. So you want to think of Everything beyond. We look at the picture there also is what's to the north, another half mile. There's more communities to be, and people to be affected by this. So you want to look not just at the property lines, but a good section within there. If he's going to be a good neighbor too within there, like I liked what he had talked about. He was talking about putting shrubbery or trees and stuff up in that northwest corner. Again, that's right where I am. That was one of my things I would hope that you would talk to him about, because in sound barriers wise, it's difficult. We're not going to get to a 0 decibel level. If you go out and sit on your back deck right now, you're basically sitting at about a 30 to 45 decibel level, just the world, okay? In a prior meeting we had discussed, he said that it would be below the OSHA requirements of 85 decibels. Well, is that 85 decibels in the facility or outside the facility, okay? And if it is outside the facility, you need to look at some scientific facts of where 85 decibels, where it dissipates to 40, a comfortable level, where I can sit back in the back on my back deck and have a beverage with my buddy and say, it's just like no big deal, okay? For the wonderful Nebraska southern wind, he says that the smell in a prior meeting, it was going to be similar to opening up a can of peanuts, okay? So for those of you that like cans of peanuts, that's probably great. If I have a friend that comes over who hates cans of peanuts, we're not going to drink beer in the back patio, okay? So the smell within there, again, and the other, remember that is no longer fresh air. So yes, we'd like the no to happen, but how much and dissipation, what scientifically do we want to know more about Norfolk Crush of what's going to happen with the smells and stuff like that. So I do appreciate your time. Again, you're the voice for us, and my opportunity right now is to talk to you about what if we don't get the opportunity after tonight. You do deem it over to heavy industrial. Nobody's talked to you about how can he be a good neighbor and a safe neighbor. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Next testifier, please.
My name is Andrea McHenry. You already heard from my husband because obviously chivalry is dead, so the women go last. It just makes sense, right? So we're, as he stated, property owners in Becker's Edition. Throughout the course of my life, I've had the opportunity to be near processing facilities and also inside processing facilities that are very similar to what they're proposing. Most of these facilities tend to be located in industrial areas or agricultural areas with very, very few neighbors close by. You don't plop them next to a residential subdivision because that's what you feel like doing. The proposed location of the Norfolk Crush facility, as you obviously are very well aware, is next to an established residential development. So while Mr. Bowdish has stated that he would like to be a good neighbor, the reality of a processing plant coexisting next to a residential neighborhood and being a good neighbor doesn't exist. It can't happen. This facility needs certain things in order to conduct their operations. They need lights that are super bright. They need to provide a safe working environment for the people that will work there. So they gotta light it up. They gotta keep it safe. They gotta keep it secured. So you're gonna have high lumen lighting. They're gonna require large volumes of truck traffic, which we talked about. And there's no way to say that can't come right down First Street. And even as like Jim brought up, how do you keep them from parking out on First Street? They will. That's what happens. You go to some of these processing facilities, and when prices are up, there they are sitting out on the highway waiting to go in and dump. Train traffic and loud equipment are also going to be things that they need to get their job done. These traits are just not something that make a good neighbor for a residential subdivision, in our opinion. In the days since the Planning Commission decision, which was honestly the first time that we heard about, oh, hey, this is the exact location of where this is going to happen, my husband and I have had the opportunity to visit with various members of the community and discuss this project. During one of these discussions, we inquired as to why a different location wasn't being proposed. And at that time, we were informed that a large investment had already been made into this property. My rebuttal to that is that for most people, the largest investment that you will ever make is your home. So you're talking about people who've made a large investment in a piece of property. Building the Norfolk Crush facility close to our homes is going to diminish the value of this investment that many people have made. For these reasons, we ask you to look at this project as if this facility were being built in your backyard and provide a no vote in regard to the zoning change. Additionally, they're talking about job creation, about creating jobs for 50 people. If you look around, there are businesses hiring right now. They cannot find people to fill the jobs that we have in this community right now. So what it means is you will take those people from established businesses and bring them out here to work, which is good, but it's also bad. You're hurting some businesses that have been here for years and years and years. So there's certainly value in adding a soybean processing facility. I don't think it's a bad thing for our community. I think that the location needs to be highly scrutinized and looked at as a different possible location for this place. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Next testifier, please.
Do you need a pen? So that just, oh.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Joanna Threm. I'm the general manager of the Nucor Steel facility that would be the direct neighbor to this facility. I just want to put forth to the council and the mayor and everyone here that we've been working with Mr. Bowdish for a while now on potentially placing this facility here. Everything in my dealings with Mr. Bowdish has proven to me that he will go above and beyond to be the best neighbor that he can be. And he has been extremely concerned about making sure that this is truly a benefit on all sides to the community, especially from a business standpoint. So just wanted to say that from a neighbor standpoint, as far as Nucor is concerned, we are definitely in favor of seeing this facility happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Next testifier, please.
Hi, my name's Scott Howard, my wife Michelle, and this is our new baby daughter Shiloh, who was born last Sunday. And we live in the property that is most closest to your plant on 5 acres. And we bought this property 3 years ago, 4 years ago, to have a family on and to raise our kids where it was quiet and safe and we don't have to worry about perverts or predators trying to kidnap our kids or anything. And now you want to put a plant 200 feet out my back door. I measured it from the first rail line to my back door is 200 feet. There's no fence, and the grove is so shitty I can walk right through it. So what are they going to do to provide my daughter a safe childhood? She can walk right through there in 2 years when she's walking, and she could be over on railroad tracks. Will she get smashed, ran over? What if one of their employees is a pervert and comes over and takes her? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to end up with people on my property in the middle of the night stealing from me because they can see everything on my property because the grove's so thin. Put yourself in our shoes. Would you want to live on my property now if they put it there? Because we would be more than willing to sell it to you. I mean, come on. Think about us. Out of all the, if you back that map up, there is square miles of nothing but maybe a house here, a house here. But they managed to find a group of 27 houses and put this plant right next to it. Now I understand that Fremont and Sioux City might have crush plants in town, but let's remember these plants have been here forever. The town built around these plants by their choice because the town wanted to. and the rail line was there, and people said, hey, this lot's for sale, let's build a house. And yeah, they're dirty. I've been to them. I drive a semi. I've hauled a lot of soybean meal. I've hauled a lot of soybean oil. I know what it's like. I've been there. I've driven out of the loadouts and had dust so thick on my truck that you could write your name in on. Well, where's that dust go when the wind's up? Right on my property. And my wife looked it up. People that work in these plants have increased asthma and lung issues down the road. Well, I don't want my daughter to have to go outside and play on her playground in her sandbox and have to play in soybean dust and have that smell. And he said in the last meeting they would be still loading cars and moving cars at 10 o'clock at night. Well, I'm sure some of you have kids or grandkids. What time do kids go to bed? They don't go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. They go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock, depending on how little they are. Well, when I can hear train cars and she can hear train cars banging and horns and everything out there, not to mention all the trucks are going to line up right on the other side of my property line. So where's all that exhaust from semis going to go all day when those truck drivers are trying to stay warm in the winter or cool in the summer? Because we all know they're not going to shut their trucks off when it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity outside. All that exhaust is going to be right on our property and through our community. We're the ones that are mainly directed by it. So if any of you would feel free to live in our property, see us after the meeting. We'll sell it to you. You want to live right next to it. Or Norfolk Crush, if he's moving to town, you know, I think that it could come to town. Let's find a different piece of property. This is like the worst place to put the plant. Back it up. If you go up, if they take their rail tracks and go north, the people that they're buying this property from own that whole section. Go north and buy that section from them. Let's move that plant up there, get it completely out of there. I drive truck. I come down and try to get on industrial highway every day. There's times where I'll sit there 5-10 minutes because there's so much traffic already from Norfolk Iron and Nucor. And if you go south on industrial or west on industrial and go to get on 81 and go south, you can't do it. You just sit there 10-15 minutes waiting for the traffic to slow down when it's rush hour. There needs to be stoplights. You can't do it, guys. They need to bring them all in off Victory, bring them around the ethanol plant, bring them up by Nucor's entrance. It's already widened up, and that's what it was meant for people to come in, not for them to come down our rural roads and destroy them. And then what's going to happen when we're trying to get to work in the mornings, and they're all sitting there at that intersection, congesting that whole intersection up? Because we all know if First Street and Industrial Road's an accident prone, what do you think these truck drivers are going to do? They see a car coming quarter mile down the road. Oh, we're going to hurry up, pull out in front of them. And we all know what's going to happen. I have people in my semi pull out in front of me every single day to the point where I got in a bad accident 2 years or 3 years ago up in Yankton and ended up killing a guy because he turned right in front of my semi. I don't want to see people die. Nobody wants that. So consider this. I mean, let's put it on the industrial. Let's go under the industrial, bring them up around the ethanol plant like this should be. That's where everybody expects the trucks to come. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Congrats on new baby.
Thanks.
Next testifier, please.
How you doing tonight, folks?
Evening.
I'm Joe Miller, and I agree with about everybody here. Sounds funny. I believe we do need this facility somewhere. Nick, do you live at the facility?
Sir, if you could direct your testimony to the council, please.
May I ask him a question?
No, that's
Okay.
out of order.
I'm
please.
curious
But you
if
can
he-
ask questions and we can
Okay.
relay questions.
My question is, does he live at the facility that he's currently in charge of? Does he drink the water there when he goes there? I mean, I think that's fair. The community is represented. We're the city of Norfolk. I mean, the city was people before it was businesses. I mean, the people showed up, and then we started doing businesses. The Chamber of Commerce is, I believe, is right. I mean, we can go after businesses, and that's cool. However, half of this neighborhood are already business owners or ex-business owners. We want to prosper. This is where I want to raise my kids here. This is where lifetime friendships are made. This is where lifetime relationships. These one of the neighbor girls was in my daughter's wedding party. I mean, we're a close-knit community. I mean, when we're talking about money and stuff, we don't have that lump sum. However, as spoke about before, we are paying taxes. In addition to that, our businesses are paying taxes. I think we're all very productive members of society, and this isn't a neighborhood we want destroyed. We're mowing our lawns. We're putting money on the property. There's always construction going on. The grass is green, primarily because nobody's parking on their lawns. I mean, it's beautiful. I love the industry. It's really going to help out the farmers. This is going to be fantastic. Just somewhere, just a little bit out of the way would be great. Anyway, I'm for it, just not here. We'll move it a little bit. I think we can all do that. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Next testifier, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Boskay. I'm the Executive Director of the Nebraska State Dairy Association, and I represent the dairy producers across the state of Nebraska. I'm here to testify in support of Norfolk Crush, and I want to thank the city of Norfolk for being so hospitable to the 2 dairy processing facilities that you have in your town, with Highland Ice Cream Facility and then also Milk Specialties Global. Those 2 facilities are extremely valuable to our industry, and Norfolk Crush would also be valuable to our industry as well. When you think about the dairy industry, profitability and profitability in general is somewhat difficult, in a majority of the time, and a lot of that hinges on your input costs. And right now, inputs are extremely high. So if you think about fertilizer costs on feed, things like that, typically if you have a local feed source, your transportation on that feed is significantly lower, which it helps out the bottom line of our dairy producers in the state of Nebraska. And so I really want to encourage Norfolk Crush. I think it's a great opportunity for Nebraska farmers, specifically Nebraska dairy farmers, and thank the city of Norfolk. And again, thanks again for being so hospitable to our 2 beautiful processing facilities you have in your town. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next testifier, please.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor and the members of the City Council, I would like to say thank you for allowing me to speak in support of this new soybean crush facility being proposed to come into the Norfolk area. I am Jim Miller from Belden, Nebraska, a crop and livestock producer in that area. Currently, I deliver my soybeans to Cargill and Sioux City, Iowa, approximately 50 miles away from my home. This plant here in Norfolk area would save me about 15 miles in driving one way. The plant would save me a lot of money in fuel, wear, and tear on my truck, and a lot less miles on the road and wear and tear on the roads every year. My last trip to deliver soybeans to Cargill and Sioux City took me 8 hours. 4 hours of it was spent in line waiting to get unloaded, and 4 hours was spent in line waiting to get a load of soybean meal to bring back home to feed my livestock. Even today, my text messages said that there was a 2-hour line to get unloaded. Most of the days, my text messages say an hour and a half to 3 hours. The new modern facility that's being proposed in the Norfolk area would drastically cut down on the time spent sitting in lines, waiting to get unloaded of soybeans and load back up with soybean meal. The new plant is proposed to unload the trucks at a rate of 1 truck per minute and load soybeans or soybean meal at the rate of 1 truck every 4 minutes. A plant of this size of crushing capacity of 110,000 bushels per day should increase the price of soybeans for me, thus adding more revenue that could be spent here supporting our local communities. It is projected that a 20-cent improvement in the basis would add about $7 million to the local economy. This plant is going to provide 50 to 55 new jobs for the Norfolk area and another $4 million worth of wages that will be spent here in the local community. The $375 million investment in this plant will be a great tax revenue for Madison County and the state of Nebraska. I have delivered soybeans to Cargill and Sioux City, Iowa, ADM and Fremont, and Lincoln, Nebraska. All of them are within the city limits, with most of them having homes within a block of the plants. I have not experienced the foul smells that's talked about or the excess noise. Granted, there is some rail car noise, but as far as the plant itself in Sioux City, I sit in my truck and I can't say as I experience loud and obnoxious noises from being in the lots of the plant. In the past, I was a director for the United States Soybean Export Council. Here in the U.S., we export about 66% of the soybeans that we grow here in the U.S. About half of that is exported as whole soybeans. A new plant like this will be great at adding value to a commodity that we grow right here in the state of Nebraska and in our local community. And that's what this country is about, is adding value. And it would be a great opportunity for us to add value to our soybeans that we grow here locally. And in turn, we spend money back in the local communities, supporting our local communities. So I would hope that you would support this new plant as proposed, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Robin Whitney. We moved here from Minnesota on February 28th. And that is the first day we found out about the plant. We had signed papers back in December. Our realtor didn't even know anything about the plant that was going to be going on. You know, I can see both sides of this. I grew up on a dairy farm. My husband and I farmed. We had hogs, sheep, dairy goats. We're used to smells. But I have asthma. I'm worried about my health. I'm worried about the health of the children. I'm worried about the safety of the children when the school bus has to come and pick them up. Who's going to protect them? They're our future. I believe a plant like this needs for agriculture to be built. But I do not think that the plant needs to be built where it is being suggested. We heard a representative from Nucor say that they have been talking to the soybean processors about what they're going to do. Have they been talking to the community for as long as they've been talking to Nucor? If they had, why didn't my realtor tell me about what was going to be happening? Why didn't she know? It was kind of dumped on us. A lot of this is touchy-feely. I get it. This is a great community. when we moved in, the people, we just say hi to anybody or they'll say hi to you. But we need to think of their welfare. They've been here for quite a while. They're growing older. What happens when you get older? My husband and I are not young, we're not old, but we have grandchildren that we want to come and enjoy the space that we have. I wish that it is my hope that this would just slow down a little bit, have the processors meet with the community, discuss maybe some alternatives that have been brought up tonight, and just slow things down a little bit. Let's table it. I understand where the farmers are. I know costs are going high. I know their bottom line is very slim. But there's two sides to the story. Let's let the soybean people work with us as a community to agree on something that will be the best outcome for everyone. Farmers, the community, the business. I think that's the only fair way to go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robin. Anyone else wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Jed Christensen from Norfolk, Nebraska. I've been a resident of the Norfolk community for over 20 years. I am the president of Commodity Solutions, a commodity trading firm located and headquartered right here in Norfolk, Nebraska. Our firm serves agricultural clients throughout northeastern Nebraska. Our clients include growers of soybeans, commercial grain elevators, as well as livestock feed mills. For our growers and elevators, this would be a significant freight savings for many of them. Today their options are to haul them to Sioux City or Fremont would be our two closest soybean plants. Savings for 38 million bushel of beans times probably a 15-cent freight savings would be significant to the clients that we serve. As well, our clients purchase over 100,000 tons of soybean meal per year. Again, those clients, protein producers, most of them swine and poultry, would have a significant freight savings as well. We just speak in favor of the zoning change and encourage your support as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jed. Anyone else wishing to testify?
John Dinkle from Norfolk, lifelong Norfolkan, and obviously in the ag business. I was at a meeting last week with informational meeting, investor meeting with Nick. There was probably 200 people there, I suppose. So everybody I've talked to, Nick is a very outstanding guy, straight shooter, so forth and so on. So it's somebody that you can definitely trust. There's been extremely emotional testimony tonight. Heck, I sat next to, in church with Norma Jean yesterday, and a lot of other people here. I know a lot of people that live out in Beckers. I can understand their situation. It's a very emotional, tough deal when you're next to your personal home. It wouldn't be for them, it'd be a no-brainer, obviously. I mean, how often does Norfolk get an opportunity for a $400 million investment? Like twice in our lifetimes, maybe? So somehow or other, we got to make this deal work. And I don't know what the answer is, but Nick is an outstanding guy. I do know he probably has other options for locations other than Norfolk, candidly. And it would be a shame if somehow or other we didn't make this work. I would maybe suggest, I think some other people have touched on it, is maybe if Nick would be willing to meet with some of the homeowners, maybe pass it on first reading. You have to pass it 3 readings, is that right, Mayor? So maybe a compromise, we pass it on first reading, and you'd have some time to digest it. I know some of the questions about water are non-issues, and he's got to get permits on air quality, all that. So I know there's lots of tough things he has to do yet. So somehow or other, we need to maybe have a meeting with some neighbors or something, but somehow or other, we need to come up with a compromise to make this thing work somehow. So I would urge you to somehow or other maybe take a first step and yet have some time to discuss it some more with neighbors, and everybody take a deep breath and somehow or other work out a deal somehow or other to make this work. Questions? Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all for your service. I appreciate it. It's a tough deal for you guys too, and ladies, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else wishing to testify? Okay. No, one opportunity, as I stated earlier. But I do think that we've gathered some questions that came up tonight. I'd like to bring Nick back up to relay some of those and have him address those as best he can. So, Nick, we heard a couple different things. I made note as best as I could in terms of questions. A couple that stood out to me were the questions of trucks waiting in line on your property, possibly also on First Street. And could you talk about that? Could you talk about how you see that playing out?
Yeah. So this is a mechanical facility. Will there be a day where some conveyor, some piece of equipment breaks down? Absolutely. That will happen over the course of a year. Is that the norm? Absolutely not. And so what I can tell you is that there's a corn ethanol facility I'm responsible for in Atlantic, Iowa, with 60,000 bushel an hour receiving system, just like what is proposed here. And that facility has accommodated over 700 truckloads in a 10-hour day of receiving without more than a 10-minute wait. That's just state-of-the-art equipment working as it's designed, and so there is a big difference between what's proposed here and what was built 60 and 80 years ago at some of these soy crush plants you've heard about in other communities. That just like agriculture has gotten more modern and more efficient, so too has the capabilities of the facility.
And if there is waiting, typically is the practice for those trucks to idle? There was concern about exhaust fumes during those wait times.
Right. So trucks would enter, again, off of North First Street. We have sufficient capacity to have those trucks come in, and the first really block you see on the top left of your screen in blue is our administration building, our check-in building. We do not have a site-specific requirement that drivers have to turn off their trucks, but what I can tell you is the largest, longest, and most scrutinized process for a soybean crush plant is to obtain a Title V major air permit. And that's a process that our facility will go through. It comes and stems from the EPA Clean Air Act of 1990. It's administered by the NDEE, Director Jim Macy. And all part of that modeling in air emissions includes fugitive emissions. And so we have to demonstrate with all of the characteristics of our facility that we meet the Clean Air Act as written in Environmental Protection Agency law, and we absolutely will.
I'm glad you addressed that. That brought up another question in terms of permitting, that the permitting processes that you have to walk through in order to make this facility operational. So it sounds like there's been legwork done in terms of the air permit that you have to acquire. Have you obtained it to this point, or is that comes in the future?
We have not. So part of the process just to apply for that air permit is a significant amount of modeling and gathering input specific to this site layout. And so for more than 90 days, the engineers have been putting together that entire package, which ultimately will get submitted to Director Macy and NDEE. But to this point, we are still finishing up all of the modeling and inputs to make that application. Once that application is made, that process too has a public comment period. Typically, have not had specific experience with that in Nebraska. In Iowa, I can tell you from start to finish, that process was nearly 6 months. And part of that process is that a facility can do earthwork, dirt work, while the application is pending, but it is needed to pour concrete. And so that is a critical path item for this project.
Okay. Another question I noted was about water usage. And
Yeah.
Can you walk us through some of the projections and how that may compare to usage today via irrigation?
Sure. So when I was in the community here a couple weeks ago for the Planning and Zoning Commission, after I finished that up, I actually went and sat down with Mike. I'm gonna maybe mispronounce his last name, Susek, the manager of the NRD, to review each one of those 3 farms has an irrigation well on them today. The irrigation well on the furthest east farm is fairly new in the last couple of years, but based on that data, if you take all the irrigation water that's been used here recently, it aggregates up to approximately 60 million gallons of water, and that water usage, as you might suspect, all occurred during the growing season, primarily 3 months of the year. So our water usage at this facility will be in a range between 300 and 360 gallons per minute. And so if you take the high end of that range, 360 gallons a minute of inbound water times 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, just take it all the way to 365 days a year to get the number as large as you can. That's about 189 million gallons in, okay? When that water comes in, it goes through reverse osmosis. We generally and primarily use water to make up steam for the plant. And so approximately 1/3 of that water at all times is discharged right back under our own NIPD's permit. So our net water usage is about 2/3 of that 189 million gallons, or about 126 million gallons. Our water usage will be ratable across the entire 12 months of the year. So rather than having 60 million gallons of demand in June, July, and August, September, we'll have approximately 126 million gallons spread fairly ratable across all 12 months. The data that I reviewed with the NRD, and I'm not sure if Brian's in the room tonight, but he can speak to it as a subject matter expert better than I. The data we reviewed was that even in the drought year of 2012, the water table in this area stayed within a couple feet of its normal level. Generally, this water table, the NRD has a monitoring well directly to the west of our proposed facility on the other side of North First Street. And so that data showed even in the worst drought in 80 or 100 years that the water supply in this area is plentiful, and that was a significant item for us to check off in our due diligence.
Okay, thank you. Last question I had was about noise at a neighbor's site. You know, average background noise is in the area of 30 to 35 decibels, and asked a question about what to expect from operational noise from the facility.
Sure. So anything that would be above that decibel in our facility would be enclosed and inside of a building. And so as I mentioned at the planning and zoning meeting, the OSHA requirements for a worker over an 8-hour day to require hearing protection is at that 85 decibels. That's correct. Over a 8-hour workday. And while our company, because it's best practice for our employees to have them use personal protective gear, so that's hard hat, safety glasses, hearing protection when we're working, our facility in the vast majority of the inside of our buildings are not at a decibel level that would even require that hearing protection under OSHA guidance. As a best practice, we recommend that and do that in our ethanol facilities, but all of our process that is above that decibel level is in enclosed buildings.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Any questions from the council?
I've got one. During the testimonies, I would have to say safety was brought up probably at least six, 7 times I'd written down here. How can we address that issue with the tracks there and making sure residents are safe, children are safe? And I think Mr. Howard stated, worried about people crossing into his yard and vice versa with his children crossing and playing on tracks. I know we've talked about adding to the green belt, with trees and stuff, but I don't know if that's something we need to discuss. I don't know if long term, public safety is one of the things we have to take care of, so.
Absolutely. And so, across this 480 acres, we have one particular building inside of our plant footprint that under code we are required to chain link fence and put around. What I was envisioning on the north side of our property was to add vegetation and add a windbreak. I think if, as a company, we look at that, we too don't want a child to wander and get in harm's way. And so as a company, I think, that's something reasonable that we could do, particularly there on the northwest corner, is to look at adding some additional protection, such as a chain link fence, and, stretch it a ways that would cover a fair amount of length where that probability might be highest.
I do have another question. I think the concern, first a statement, I think the concern of trucks being on First Street waiting to get in, to me, looks like possibly an issue. On your grounds, how many trucks can you hold while they're waiting?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, Val, can you zoom in at all in the northwest corner there? What I wanted to point out was each one of those lines is actually a center line of a truck lane. And so in a worst case scenario, mechanical failure, I am very confident that we can get trucks off of North First Street, because as you can see, as it comes in and bends back to the north, our road widens out into multiple lanes. And so while I don't have the exact number or pulled linear foot distance from the admin building back, and I don't want to give you the wrong number, I can follow up with that. But in my mind, even if we experienced a couple hour breakdown, we still are able to absorb and bring on the truck traffic that is trying to make a delivery, so it's not a public safety concern on North First Street. And I will and can get back to you with that exact number.
Any way you can pull the plant down at all?
That's a very difficult ask for a lot of reasons. We've looked at that in the last 2 weeks, and without pulling any emotion into it, I would tell you that what we have to offer tonight is as proposed.
I think the biggest one that's been asked for me is going east for the people I've spoken to. What's the concerns about location?
And the primary one, as I mentioned in my testimony, is the floodplain.
You want to hit on the lighting a little bit too?
Sure. So when it comes to lighting, I think one of the residents described it well. We want to light the facility to have our people be safe, but I will also tell you that it is not our intent to light this up like a football stadium on a Friday night. And so, prime example, Atlantic, Iowa, we built street lights with lights shining down on the road, one side of our inbound drive, lights specifically in the plant for our employees at night to to have visibility. But we've got a neighbor there in Atlantic, Iowa that's just a couple hundred feet, and actually their home is 500 feet up above the plant. And so my commitment to that person, and we did it the first time we had power and lit everything up, was tell me, sit in your living room tonight and tell me, are there any lights shining in your living room? And if so, let's figure out which ones and figure out how to redirect them. So with additional vegetation and the type of lighting we use, primarily shining down, I think that will not be of the highest impact.
I have lived on 7th Street where there's a train literally in my backyard. What is the expected train traffic and kind of the hours there that those trains are coming through?
Sure. So when it comes to train traffic, the first thing I always like to make clear is that our company does not control the timing of trains. And so I would never want the council or any community member to somehow take my comments to mean that this is the schedule, because at the end of the day, the facility will be served, yes, by the NCRC locally, but frankly, guys, on some of the units, it'll be the Union Pacific Railroad that comes in to pull the 100-car train, and even the NCRC may not have complete control over that. When it comes to the amount of product produced, there's approximately 6 rail cars a day of production of the vegetable oil that will all go by rail. And so that traffic will tend to be ratable throughout the week. The soybean meal, which is loaded on rail cars, and that's where the market demands that we aggregate trains into a 100-car train. Again, if all the soybean meal left by rail, the facility would produce one of those trains every 4 days. In reality, a significant amount of this livestock feed will stay in the local market. And so my best estimate is one of those 100-car trains would be coming in and leaving the facility 1 per week.
Thank you.
So if you had to break down those percentages just a little bit more,
sure.
What do you think what percent would be truck traffic and what percent is train?
Soybeans will all be truck delivered. So that's the base 200 trucks a day. The soybean meal, if you take 7 days of production over a 5-day work week, that's a total of 135 trucks. So if it was 50% truck and 50% rail, that would be approximately 65 additional trucks of soybean meal per day for a total of 265. What happens in the commodity market is it ebbs and flows. And so it won't be a static number, it's consistent. There'll be times where the local demand is very strong, and so more of the product will leave the facility by truck. And there'll be markets and times where the local market's well supplied, and the demand is to get the product out of Nebraska. So yeah, want to be just real forthright and clear on that. It will ebb and flow, but on average, I would speak to the 50-50 on soybean meal.
On the, I think the fencing idea would be pretty critical, especially after hearing some of that testimony. So strongly encourage you to consider that. But on another note, you were talking vegetation along First Street also. So add another row on the north side of the property and along First Street where there isn't any currently.
Yeah, I think we can come from the north side, add vegetation to what's there today, and then as that curve comes around, I think we can absolutely add vegetation there to provide more of a natural barrier. And the thing that would be important to me is to cease adding that so that we have plenty of visibility around that private entrance on North First Street.
The existing shelter belt on the north is about half and half, right?
That's correct.
Do you store any product outside?
As far as which product?
Well, I see silos. Is
Yep.
it all kept internal, or
It
is there product out
Yeah,
there?
so in the top left of the diagram, where you see it kind of looks like an oval, round on the ends and horizontal, that's a large soybean meal flat storage building. So that's all enclosed. And when the soybean meal is produced off the plant, it goes and is contained all in that building until we load it out on trucks or rail cars. All the soybeans are stored inside of what's proposed there are steel bins. And so, and then of course the soybean oil being a liquid is all inside of a tank farm. So no product stored, you know, if you were referencing like say a grain elevator operation where they may have to pile things on the ground at harvest because of that urgent need, none of that at this facility.
As far as talking about that Greenbelt, you know, we've in the past talked with Greenbelts people and they end up being just a little starter tree, you know, and then we're talking 20, 30 years or even 10, 15 years before you actually have something there. What is your, you know, how would that look, or what kind of plan is there? Is that something you need to ask from the city to look at working with? You know, I don't want to see a Greenbelt going in there and it's just, hey, it looks great on paper for us, and hey, but then these guys got to live with this little starter tree out there. I don't think that's fair for anyone. So somehow or another, we got to into the discussion, figure out how we're doing that and how that's being laid out. And
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, frankly, I wasn't thinking that anybody else's dollars were going to pay for this other than my own. So I didn't, not come into the council.
I threw that out there without it.
Yeah.
You know, but
frankly,
I just want to make sure this is done.
Even
properly.
a representative of the NRD informed me on a conversation last week. Hey, Nick, we help with that kind of stuff.
Right.
I had no idea. You know, my intention is, you know, we're making the investment.
NRD likes to give you little starter trees.
I'm sorry?
Little starter trees.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting into like, we're going to be spading and stuff and, you know, so that's going to take off and be an actual green belt. 'Cause it, that was another, you know, that's some of the concerns I'm right now when people are talking about. And, you know, Mr. Dinkle came up here and talked about the spirit of compromise, and I think that that's very important when you have something like this come to your community, that we're able to compromise and make agreements and follow up on things and be the neighbor that we intend to be, and you know, those sort of things. So,
Underlying point is I think buffering and screening will be very important.
Yeah, and heard loud and clear, and I think, you know, those things that we just talked about, both with vegetation and then particularly in the northwest corner with fencing for safety, you know, you've got my commitment this evening that our company stands behind that.
This isn't something you could probably answer, but I think it's something that probably needs to be brought up, but NDOT probably needs to be involved or knowing how much truck traffic is going to be happening, especially at the 81 Industrial Highway, possibly Victory Road, possibly Industrial Highway and 35. It's a legitimate concern that there is trucks that will try to turn south, and it could be a major issue, obviously. So that doesn't necessarily fall into your lap, but I think it's something that...
when you're saying south on 81 off
Yeah,
Industrial?
yeah.
Yeah.
That, and there has been accidents. I think Chad Barnhill brought it up, accidents at Industrial Highway and First Street. So there is some definite concerns that NDOT probably needs to look at.
Oh, you're right. With turning south on the we have to consider it going through a town as well.
Correct. I think we're gonna have to revisit the decision that we made a few months ago about the truck routes. And have to relook at that from the standpoint of, are we gonna allow them down Victory Road? Because that's gonna be a huge increase in what we have already on that particular road. I'm glad Corey brought up the, I don't know, Steve, if you know, do we have to request studies to be done for lights? Does the state just do that automatically? How does that work?
I'd suggest carrying on that discussion when we consider the ordinance. We're still in public hearing here. If there are any questions still for Nick, let's ask those. And if not, we'll close the public hearing and then we can continue that discussion with the ordinance. No, doesn't look like it. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no one else wishing to testify, I will ask for a planning commission report, please.
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 8th, 2022 at the request of Michael and Gina Eaker, Raymond and Mary Johnson, trustees of Raymond and Mary Johnson Trust, and Leah Quischendorf Jr. to consider a zoning change from A, Agricultural District, and RR, Rural Residential District, to I-2, Heavy Industrial District, on properties generally located north of East Newcore Road and east of north of First Street and of Victory Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the request with a 6-0 vote.
Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing and move to item number 32 and look for a motion to consider ordinance number 5770, approving a zoning change from A and RR to I-2 on properties generally located north of East Newcore Road and east of North First Street and of Victory Road.
I'll offer for consideration ordinance number 5770, approving a zoning change from agricultural district and RR to I2 heavy industrial district.
Second that.
Motion and second, and now discussion. Thad, you can continue your point on transportation. Ask staff any questions that you might have in that regard.
I just think that we need to have, there needs to be some kind of way to measure that so that we have some kind of accountability of how this traffic, I know that's why we put the industrial road in years ago, and I know that's the way it was all designed. With the industry that's gone out on the northeast of our town, which is a great thing that's happened with our community. But I do think that needs to be addressed somehow. I don't know how that operation works.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What I see happening, assuming that if this was to pass tonight on first reading, I think the next step then would be to bring the county, the Department of Transportation and the city to the table to really kind of brainstorm around all the different components that would need to be addressed. Industrial Road and Highway 81, you know, that intersection needs to be looked at. First Street and Industrial Road needs to be looked at. As I look at it, I believe right now we still allow heavy truck traffic on Victory Road between the roundabout and Benjamin. I would see that going away. You know, we don't want to be encouraging truck traffic for generally a residential area. I do see, when you look at the three cardinal directions, I see, obviously, you know, we're not too worried about anything coming out of the north, but I could see a lot of anything coming from the east, the west, or the south is going to be going up Highway 81 through town. And so I think I certainly have concerns about that, and that's, again, there's a conversation, I think, with the Department of Transportation, the condition of Highway 81 through town, just what is that increased traffic going to do to the longevity there, and are there any potential solutions maybe to redirect some of that traffic? So I would say absolutely, and I think, you know, again, assuming this passes on first reading tonight, a meeting with city, county, Department of Transportation is going to be critical.
I guess I'm most confident on the conversation that we've had. I'm glad that you folks came out and did this. We don't get this very often here. It makes our job harder, but it also makes us more appreciative of what we have in this community. So with that, I thank you for coming out and speaking upon what you believe in for your situation. And the other thing, I guess, is that as a community, we need to look at growing, and I think we're doing a great thing. I talked to a lot of different people that have been not in Norfolk for a long time, and they're coming back, whether to see family or friends or relatives, and they cannot believe how Norfolk has changed in the last 10 years. We had some classmates back here a month ago or so, and they hadn't been here 15, 20 years. And they're very impressed on what this community has done together, not on just what one particular business did in this community. So this is a very hard decision for us to sit up here and make this. I hate making these decisions, but it's something that needs to be made, and I guess that's why I'm on the city council, is to try to make a difference for everybody. So I think I'm going to encourage Nick to try to have maybe another public meeting with the residents, along with what you're doing now. I think it's great, very informative, and being truthful with us. And I would also encourage you residents to keep having conversations, whether it's email or telephone calls, with the council up here, and try to come up with a way to make this work for everyone in the area.
And I would like to just piggyback on what Thad's saying, and I do realize you are outside of our wards, but I would encourage anybody to reach out to anybody on the council that will voice your opinion. And it doesn't have to be one person. It can be everybody, or it can be just one person. Whether we represent you or not in your particular area, I would say reach out.
I'm gonna not to steer off course of that, because it's obviously true of the growing in the community. We do reach out into areas in that 2-mile jurisdiction where people feel like they're not represented. And we have received emails, obviously, and letters that have come to us about this situation and other situations too. So always encouraged to reach out to us, even though we understand, we get it. You didn't vote for us, but we're still an ear and a voice for you. So, Steve, I had one thing to bring up that I don't know that it was brought up, and I don't know if anybody's here from the county to talk about what they're doing on First Street or what the plans are on First Street for trucks. Can you discuss that a little bit?
In terms of this facility?
Yeah, if this would go through, happen, what their thoughts or
They are
plans were.
definitely, I mean, they're very aware of this, and I think they've been in conversation with the organizers of the crush facility and some preliminary conversations about that. My understanding is, and again, I hate to put words in the county's mouth, but this is just based on what I generally am aware, is they are looking at some full reconstruction of First Street north of Industrial Road. They are looking at turn lanes, intersection improvements. I've kind of inquired into that just to see if some of those questions were going on, and it sounds like they are. And those in the facilities I've worked on in the past, mostly ethanol plants, all the conversations that I was going through on those, it sounds like they're going through on this. I think probably the one exception there is, I'm not 100% sure to what extent the Department of Transportation has been engaged relative to like the Highway 81 Industrial Road intersection. But there's no question, based on the traffic counts, that we're expecting that they will step up and participate in the conversation and may participate in the actual studies themselves.
Corey, I don't know if this would be helpful or not. Dick Johnson did send a letter into Planning Commission talking about that, and I do see Dick in the audience tonight too. If either of those would be helpful, I mean, I can certainly read it, or if you want Dick to come up.
Dick looks like he's hiding back there, so maybe just read it. If he has to add anything to it,
Okay.
We can go from there.
Because the Planning Commission did ask this to, at their subcommittee also before hearing it 2 weeks ago. And so this said, Madison County is committed to improving North First Street from Northeast Industrial Highway to the plant entrance and New Core Road from the plant exit to North First Street. In addition, we will be looking at improving the intersection at North First Street and Northeast Industrial Highway to accommodate anticipated turning movements.
I guess one last thing, kind of piggyback on what you guys had to say, is I've been in the situation where you have something, it was another community I lived in, and they were proposing to put something next to our property, and you feel helpless. You do. And I get where you're coming from. There's a sense of helplessness, and you don't know where to go, and you don't know what to do, and the best thing you can get are facts and information. And I feel like I'm a little bit frustrated with tonight, because I'm a little bit frustrated with how these processes work. And if we could get facts information out there, I know a lot of times on these things they're confidential, and heck, a lot of times we don't know what's going on, honestly. A lot of times it comes to us later, after they've decided, the developers. Nick, and I have nothing to say, Nick's been more than accommodating to answering our questions tonight in the meeting I was in, and he does come across to me as a person that will work hard to be a good neighbor. I honestly feel that way, just sitting in the meetings I've been with him. But these can be, and we're used to it, guys. We come here every night, or not every night, but on the Monday nights that we're supposed to be here. So somehow or another, we've got to open up that level of communication after with these projects, not even with the general public and what's affecting them and us. As I came here tonight, I felt lack of form too, and I don't like that feeling, and I'm pretty frustrated about it. I walked out of the subcommittee meeting frustrated, and I went through this meeting frustrated. I'll put that out there, and that's something that's on us and on the city that we need to work on. The other thing, and we've talked about this numerous times, about when we do annex and when our 2 mile moves out and people don't feel like they have representation. And then we have had people speak to me about it. And we've had conversations, and I know I've had conversations, Josh, we've talked about it. I know I've talked to a couple of you guys about it. But that is something I don't know what legally we can do, but somehow or another we have to get it where it's not just, oh, hey, give me a call. And that's appreciative, and I'm sure they appreciate the fact call. They actually have to have somebody they can lean on and feel like they've got somebody in their corner. And I don't know how that works, but I'm sure there's other communities that have been in our situation with the 2 mile, and people feel like they don't have, it's a hopeless feeling, and it just, I've been through it, and I know what you're going through. So just want you to know that we do listen, we do hear your concerns. Hopefully we can address a lot of those concerns moving forward here. And so we're bottom line is we're a community, and we've got to work together to live together. So.
Any other questions or comments, council? Well, it's times like this when I'm proud of the community I live in, because these are hard discussions in a lot of ways. Lives are impacted, and we heard that loud and clear tonight. But we can also have rational and reasonable discussions without standing up and shouting at each other and being angry, as seems to be the trend around the country today. I think this was a productive discussion. A lot of things came to light. It's not always a perfect process, but it's the process we have when these types of proposals come forward. And so underlying all this, the council has a decision, and the planning commission had a decision to make on whether the zoning land use designation that's being sought for here makes sense in this area, and whether the facility proposed on which is compatible with that land use. And so this project having met those requirements, it opens the door to other discussions as to how best does it fit on the property to make it as harmonious as possible with existing residents. So I think that discussion got fleshed out here tonight, and I see it continuing if this should go forward in the first step. Again, there's a process, and so what we're considering tonight is just the first reading of this zone change request. Should it move forward, there's another couple weeks in which a lot of these discussions can continue, and I've gotten the sense that the proposer here, the developer, Nick, very much wants to be a good neighbor and is willing to listen to concerns, and as much and as best as he can make accommodations to do that. With all that said, we do need to come to a decision tonight, and if there's no further discussion or questions, council, are we ready to take a vote? And if so,
We need to roll short title first.
yep, I would ask for a short title, please. Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance number 5770 carries on first reading.
Okay, with a change in the agenda, moving item number 33 to after item number 35, we now come to a quarterly public comment period in which anyone in the community can address the council on any issues that they see fit. Is there anyone wishing to comment? Hearing and seeing no one, we will take up item number 35, which is a potential closed session for the protection of public interests to discuss potential litigation. And in order to do that, I would have to have a motion to go into closed session for said purposes.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to move into closed session.
Okay, motion and second. If no discussion, roll call, please. Please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, motion carries. So again, we will be entering into closed session in which the only matter discussed will be updating elected officials on potential litigation. Okay, the only item discussed during the closed session was potential litigation. May I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, that concludes this meeting of the Norfolk City Council. We are adjourned.
No, no. Yeah, we moved the order. I think we got number 33 left.
Okay. Strike that. Adjournment, motion for adjournment. 33. Item 33, originally on the regular agenda, before the closed session, I would look for a motion to consider approval of change order number 2 with Perry Reed Construction, LLC for the City of Norfolk Transfer Station Site Improvements Project, resulting in a net increase of $23,882.70.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned.
What'd you say?